Hey, what's going on, man? This is Will Z Tidwell with Skybox Conversations, and I got one question for you. Why do the Suns stink so damn bad? Why do the Suns think so bad? Now, I did an episode a while back where I said these are some of the highlighting questions around some of the buzzing teams in the league, either buzzing for the right reasons, for all the wrong reasons, right? We talked about everybody. We talked about the Orlando Magic and their injuries. We talked about the 76ers and should Joel Embiid entire and will he be shut down for the season? And he end up being. We talked about the Lakers. We talked about, so many teams, man. But one of the main questions I asked about this Phoenix team, the question around them was, what is it about this Phoenix Suns team that's making them so bad? Like, why do they stink so bad? Right? Like, I can understand having struggles, having skids, losing tough games, but it's getting to the point where it's like, all right, now we didn't expect y'all to be this bad. You know what I'm saying? And it seems to be getting worse and worse every time you turn around. And so let's answer the question of why I feel like this in particular team is bad and what the facts say about why this team is so bad. Number one, let me go ahead and say this first. I was never too hype about the Bradley Beal Booker trade to begin with because I never truly felt like um Bradley Beal was going to push the needle for them. One, he coming from a losing culture. He been losing for, you know, what, 8 years, right? The roughly you could say 8, 9 years. The last, like, him and John Wall and them weren't relevant since what, like 14, 15. Like, they ain't been relevant for a while, right? And he was always injury prone as well, which he's been pretty injury prone since he's been a Phoenix Sun as well. Then I feel like this too. Him and Bradley Beal essentially play the same position. I won't say they have the same game, but essentially they do. Neither one of them are lockdown defenders. KD can play defense pretty well to hold his own, but he's not just locking shit up either. So it's like that move never really made sense to me. And I think it was more of one of them things where it was like we so thirsty to try to get back to what we were, being in the finals, being in the Western Conference Finals, right? Making deep playoff runs to where they just kind of saw something on paper and it looked good, but it necessarily wasn't good for them, right? And I think that's something that you got to look at with James Jones and Matt Ishbia and them and making this decision. It just didn't quite make sense, if I'm being honest with you. And I think James Jones got trigger happy and kind of just saw what looked good on paper and just went with the first thing he saw. So why do the Suns think so bad? Let's get to it. So the Phoenix Suns have been facing significant challenges recently. As of March 4th, which is today, they hold a record of 28 and 33, placing them 11th in the Western Conference and jeopardizing their playoff aspirations. We all know that. If they even, man, they might not even make the play in at the rate that this team is going, which is really sad, man, and it sucks. But when you talk about what are some of the recent things and recent reasons as to why they've been losing and things I think that have contributed to it all year. Now, outside of these reasons that you see here, they tried to blame it on the center position in Nurkic and things that he wasn't doing, made him almost unplayable. He wasn't even touching the court in his last days as a Phoenix Sun. I don't think he was at all necessarily the problem. Now, yeah, he's slow-footed. He can't guard that well. He can't shoot the ball that well. I mean, he's a big bruiser. He's never been that type of guy, right? Even when he was with Dame, he's never been a guy that, you know, does maybe what they were looking for, right? We're talking about being agile, quick on your feet. He was never that, right? And then you go get Nick Richards. Then you got Plumlee in there. And that's not really moving the needle, but it helps a little bit, right? But the number one thing that I realize is that once you start talking about trading KD in the middle of the season, and then you don't trade KD and he doesn't want to go to Golden State, that's already one shot in the foot. Because if you ever watched this team lately, they look so out of it, like they don't even like playing together. And I'm sure the whole thing with Coach Bud telling Devin Booker to tone it down, right? Stop being so loud, stop being so vocal. I'm sure that didn't help either. But I gotta start asking another question too when you talk about the coaching side of it. Is it all on the coaching? I understand you're hearing rumblings of Coach Bud is losing the play, losing the locker room, and the team ain't really rocking with him. I get all of that. But is it really all on the coaching? At some point, the players got to nut up and say, you know what, we got to do our job too, whether the coach is making mistakes or not, because we making mistakes too, right? We not doing our job to the fullest extent that we could be doing it either. because you got Frank Vogel fired after 1 year. Then you get a Coach Bud to come in, championship pedigree coach as well, just like Vogel. And then now you already having problems with him, and year one not even over with for him yet. And you already having issues. Who's the real problem here? Who's really the issue at this point? Is what I'm asking. It can't be all on the coach, man. Now, granted, maybe he shouldn't have sold Devin Booker that. Maybe he should have said it a different way. But we don't even know the extent of what he meant when he said what he said to him. Maybe Book was overdoing it because they've been losing so much. Book felt like he has to overcompensate and help in those areas. But that ain't your job, right? But maybe Book like, well, y'all ain't doing it, so I got to say something. I get it. Whatever. But what are the reasons they've been struggling as of late? Obviously, it's the defensive issues, right? Talking about how the defense has been so inconsistent. It'll be games where this says second half collapses. I feel like there are games where they're having to play catch up the entire game. And then you talk about not being able to close the game because you've exerted so much energy trying to get back into the game after being down 20, 25, right? It's hard for you to come back and close the game. Or it has been on the other side where they've had leads late into games and just completely fall apart. Can't get key stops when they need them. Stop making shots. Spacing is off, right? Like communication seems to be off and just literally falling apart. They turn the ball over at a very high rate, which I was kind of surprised because you would think with Tyus Jones at the helm as your point guard, one of the best assist to turnover ratios in the league for the last 5-something years, you would think that wouldn't be an issue. But for some reason, they turn the ball over at an insane rate. Now, granted, some of that might be because you got Bradley Beal coming off the bench. He playing a little bit of that point guard position for that second unit, things of that nature. Tyus Jones going out the game and what that looks like. Not being sure what they're going to get into set-wise, just looking very lackadaisical at times, leading to people turning them over and getting out running and scoring on them at a high clip. And to me, when you talk about the defensive side too, name one person on that team that's just a lockdown defender. Is it Royce O'Neal? No. Is it Tyus Jones? No. Is it Bradley Beal? Hell no. Is it Devin Booker? Not really. Is it KD? Not really. Is it Nick Richards? Not really. Right? You got Ryan Dunn, but he's a rookie, right? So he plays pretty good defense, but he's a rook. You can only expect so much from him. So when you talk about the struggles, it's like you have nobody on that team that you can say, go give me a stop. Go guard the best player for 48 minutes and give him hell. You may not stop him, but give him hell. You don't have a Lou Dort. You don't have a Dylan Brooks. You don't have a Min Thompson. You don't have these dudes that can go get it. You don't have that. Right? You don't have anybody that's enforcing and is a bruiser and is moving people. And you don't have any of that type of energy dogs on this team. And it shows, right? And then obviously you can't help but to talk about the injuries and the inconsistency within their rotations. A big part of that being Bradley Beal. I wouldn't even say KD as much. I would say Bradley Beal more than Kevin Durant because it's like, again, said in the beginning of the show, he's always been injury prone, and he's been just as injury prone here. His back, his foot, his ankle, his motherfucking calf. Like, it's always something, right? And they need that third punch. And even him coming off the bench, even he's been doing pretty good. But it's like even when they go off together, it ain't leading to much positive results. And the crazy thing is, this is one of the better seasons KD has had. He averaging damn near 28 points. Book is hooping, right? Bradley Beal having some great games off the bench, and you're still losing. So I think it's a combination of things. I think it's not having a true defensive anchor, not having no dogs on this team. You turn the ball over. It's insanely too much. The inconsistency in the rotations and having all of these injuries. And I think they have just too many people in the same team that do too many of the same things, if that makes sense what I'm saying. And yeah, the coaching thing helps a little bit, but I really can't blame a lot of this on Coach Bud. I really can't. Now, some of it, yes, maybe, but I can't sit here and definitively say he's the reason. He's the reason. I can't do that. I can't do that, man. I just can't do that. And again, I think that really messed up the culture and the vibes of the team when you talk about trading KD in the middle of the season and clearly showing that Book is the guy you betting the horse on, which I don't get it. He's much younger, right? Much more of an upside, got a lot left in the tank. And KD is on the backside of his career, even though he's still averaging 28 points a game. I get it, but still, I don't know. I don't know. Now let's answer this next big question when it comes around the Suns. Why trade KD to begin with? Why trade this man to begin with? Now, I I think it's nothing other than not because he's not a great player, not because he isn't who he is, but because they know they don't have any real assets left, and only way they can gain some of those assets back is to go and trade the most tradable player on their team besides Devin Booker or Bradley Beal, who is Kevin Durant. And you can't trade Bradley Beal, which is more than likely who they would want to trade. They can't trade him because Bradley Beal has the no trade clause. I guarantee if he didn't have that no trade clause, Bradley Beal will be gone before Kevin Durant would. I guarantee it. But you have to trade Kevin Durant because you need some assets. And the sad part about it is that even though you're going to get some things in return for this guy, you may not get what you could get if he was 5 to 7 years younger. If his tenure with Phoenix was a lot more successful. Teams are going to be, I feel like some teams are going to look at Kevin Durant a little bit differently. And yeah, they're going to give up some stuff. I'm not saying that they're not, but instead of giving up 2 or 3 first round picks, you might only want to give up one in the second round and a player or something, right? Like you're not going to give up a whole lot. Like it still blows my mind what New York gave up to get Mikal Bridges. You would think in real time Kevin Durant would be able to be traded for something like that, right? Which would be great for Phoenix when you talk about assets. But he's not going for no 5 first round picks. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's just kind of it was that again. It's still hard to wrap your head around. But the simple reason they trade KD is because you can't trade Bill. You want to build around Book, and you need some assets. And so, who's the most asset driven player on your team? It's Kevin Durant. I think that's what it is. It's business. It has nothing to do with Kevin Durant not being a bucket, Kevin Durant not being great, Kevin Durant not being someone that they possibly wanted to keep. It's that, man, we got to make a move because we have nothing else that we can do, and you are the only thing that has real value on our team that we can actually do something with. I think it's that simple. It sucks, but I think it's that simple. I really, really do. So now it kind of brings you to that next question of where would KD prefer to go, or where could he potentially end up, right? When you talk about those teams, and so it's 5 teams. I read an article recently, here on SB Nation, written by Ricky O'Donnell, yesterday actually. Great article where he kind of talks about potential trade destinations for KD. They can end up making it another blockbuster trade going on to this summer. And so it was 5 destinations that he talked about, and I want to kind of break those down real quick and which one I feel like could potentially be the best one for him and what each one could look like, right? And this is tricky because these 5 teams, a couple of them are on the on the come up in a crazy way, and it's like, damn, do you want to trade for KD and mess up developing your young talent, right? So let's start with number 1. OKC was number 5 on that list. Going back to where it all started, I think there's a great story there. I think Sam Presti um could see how marketable that could be, right? Pairing him with Shea, I think it could be really, really good. And it kind of gives them what they need in the sense of a closer. You got Shea, don't get me wrong. I'm not disrespecting him, but I'm saying a closer with experience when it comes down to the nitty gritty. Because what is the number one reason that nobody's really taking OKC serious when it comes to the playoffs? Because they've never been there before, and they don't have anybody on their team that's ever been there before, right? But if you put a guy like KD in the mix of that team, you have to start respecting them on another level. Because one thing we've seen that's to be true, KD does really well with another superstar, a la Steph, right? A la Russ, a la James Harden, right? He does really well with other superstars when it's not all on him. He doesn't have to be the necessarily the leader, but he can still be one of the best on the team without having to do all the vocal shit, and he can bring you home. But this is what you got to ask yourself. What all would OKC have to give up in order to give them? I feel like you wouldn't have to necessarily give up all your assets like far as players go because they got so many first round picks. But it's also like, damn, does Phoenix only want picks or they want a young promising player? Are you asking for Jalen Williams? Are you asking for Lou Dort? Right? I mean, like, who are you asking for? You ain't asking for Chet. You ain't getting Shea. I feel like you ain't getting Jalen Williams. I feel like you'll give up like Andrew Wiggins, right? I feel like you'll give up like Andrew Wiggins before you give up anybody. A couple of those other key bench dudes that they got over there. I'm not sure some of their names, like Kenrich Williams or something like that. Like I said, they got so many assets and picks. You might want to use some of those. So like if OKC can find a way to finesse it and just give some picks up when they got like 50 of them, and you can keep that big three they already have intact, and you add KD with Chet, and now you go Shea, Jalen Williams, Lou Dort, Chet, and KD. Shit, that's a crazy lineup, bro. That's a crazy lineup, bro. That's really, really good. I'm not too fond of that. I'm not too scared of that. I'm not. That's a good one. That's a good one. But again, it goes down to what are they willing to give up. This is another interesting one. Detroit, him going to be a Piston. Man, the Pistons are on the come up, man. I think they're like 21-6 over their last 27 games. They moving up the standings. They've had the best record they've had in damn near like 15 something years. Um, man, a physical, bruising, dominant, in your face, like old school Pistons type of style of ball. Like, and then you got a young superstar over there in Cade. Malik Beasley is one of the best shooters in the league right now. Jalen Duran is a young budding center in this league. Reminds you a lot of Ben Wallace, a lot of them, right? You got the other Thompson twin over there doing some amazing athletic things. You got Tobias Harris, a vet over there. Man, you got Jade Ivy coming back next year. They got some pieces, bro. So it's a matter of, do you want to break that up? What do you give up for that? Do you give up Tobias Harris? Do you find a way to give up Tobias Harris and Malik Beasley and a pick or two? And you want to keep Malik Beasley, though, because he's shooting that bitch. But you got KD, but damn, he 34, 33. So like, the biggest thing is, what are teams willing to give up? Because I feel like, and I also just don't feel like Detroit fits him. I feel like that style of ball isn't really him, if I'm being honest. And I don't know if he moves the needle enough to make Detroit like title contenders. I feel like OKC becomes more of a title contender with him, but not so much Detroit. So it would still be cool, but I don't know if that fits him. And again, it goes back to that question of what are you willing to give up? I'm not too high on that one. OKC still in the league. Miami, not really, because I feel like even if you go there, not only are you probably gonna have to give up Bam or Tyler, potentially maybe, but I just feel like even him going there kind of feels like him going to Phoenix. Like, it doesn't really move the needle. It doesn't really push them over the top, right? It really doesn't make them like scary to me, if I'm being honest. Like, it'd be cool, but I ain't really seeing that too much, right? Now, I've been hearing this one a lot, this Houston Rockets. I've been hearing that one a lot. And I really, really would be intrigued to see him go play in Houston. Right, you go playing with a Fred VanVleet. You're going to play with the Thompson twin. You're going to play with Dylan Brooks. You're going to play with Sengun and Jalen Green. Now, again, of course, they're gonna have to give up something. But what are you giving up? Can you find a way to get rid of Jabari Smith, uh, uh, um, maybe Cam, right over there, Reed Shepard or something? Like, can you get rid of some of those young guys that was doing some things, but weren't like really break Cam Whitmore? Like, you ain't really breaking the lineup for real, but they some young studs over there, right? Can you give up them dudes and keep Thompson and keep Fran VanVleet, keep Jalen Green, and keep Shingun? Can you keep them four and you get KD and still have a somewhat of a decent bench? Because I know Udoka is super high on Tyree Eason. I know he's super high on him. Who else on that bench over there? You got Jabari. You got who else they got over there? They got still Lindale. They still got Lindale. Or they got who they got coming off the bench? I can't remember. They got Steven Adams, right? So it's like, what are you giving up? It all goes back to that. That's the number one question. But if you can keep those four I mentioned, Van Fleet, and then you got Dylan Brooks. You might have to give up Dylan Brooks. I can see that happening too. I can see him going to Phoenix, even though you wouldn't really want that because you talk about needing a dog. I feel like Houston still needs that, but you got Thompson though. You do have Thompson. You do have Thompson. And so it's just a matter of but I think he can push them over the top and make Houston a team that you take seriously when it comes postseason time. He's a team. He's a person that can make them be taken seriously because why don't nobody fear them? Just like OKC, haven't been there before. But when you add a dude like that with the young talent all around him and the coaching of Udoka, now you're having a different conversation. But you still need to keep some of them dogs intact. Can't give up all of them. You don't need some of them, man. And the number one option they said was Dallas. Now his reasoning for this, O'Donnell's reason for this was interesting. It was more so I felt like he was saying it was more so of a saving grace for Nico more than it was improving the Mavericks because Nico needs to make a big splash, such as something like this, to save a little face from all of the mistakes that he made thus far. On top of the very terrible trades that have been taking place. I mean, terrible injuries that have like really ridden this team as of late, right? But again, it goes back to man, who are you giving up for, dude? Who are you giving up from? You giving up PJ Washington? Are you giving up? Are you giving up one of your bigs and Lively or Gafford? Right? Like, what does that look like? Because if you make the wrong move and give up the wrong piece, that really messes up that championship window. I mean, because you could go Kyrie, the Martin twin, KD, AD, and Gafford. That's a nice damn five. That's a big five too. That's a big team, right? It's not a terrible starting five. But then off the bench, did you give up Lively? PJ probably gone. Yeah, Jaden Hardy. You got um I'm missing a couple guys. I just don't know. I think out of these five, OKC, Detroit, Miami, Houston, Dallas, the two I like the most is gonna have to be OKC and Houston. Dallas is a close one, but I just think again that one would be more about Nico trying to save face because saying, oh, we got KD. But even then, KD gonna be right up there with AD, 33, 34 years old on the end of his career, still can hoop, still can, still get a bucket and still be a franchise, bring light to a team, right? And make people want to come watch because he is who he is, but it's like, does it move the needle? And at the end of the day, that's what this is about. Um, but just sum it up, man. The reason why the Suns stink is their defense. It's the lack of chemistry. Maybe it's a little coaching. They have no real dogs on that team. Beal has put them in a real tough place with that no trade clause, and I think that's the reason KD would be traded in the first place. And these are some of the places that he could potentially end up going. Out of the ones that I've mentioned, I think OKC and Houston will be my favorites. I think OKC would make the most sense and it has the best story there. But we will continue to monitor it and see. But I wanted to come in here and just break down like why do the Suns suck so bad, and why would they trade KD in the first place? And that is exactly what my reasons are. And let me know what y'all think. Be sure to like and comment in the video, man. And I'm gonna end it right here. I love y'all so much, and I'm gonna end it right here. And until the next one, man. I'll see y'all later. Peace.